All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig in a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video as James Jones, the former San Jose State receiver, had an interesting take today on the Niners season. We'll talk a little bit about that. First, we're brought to you by Pig in a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Pig in a Pickle. Go say hi to Damon and Mary. Get some brisket chili. Tell them the Krug sent you. And, of course, we're also brought to you by Better. This video is sponsored by Better, the official daily fantasy sponsor of the Krug Show. Use Better to make daily fantasy lineups and win real money. Download the app below. Make sure you use the promo code Niners to get your first deposit matched up to $200. And everyone who signs up is automatically entered into a drawing to win the free Niner jersey of choice. Last time we gave away a signed Fred Warner jersey. We will see who it will be this time, but everybody who signs up is in the running for that jersey. All right, let's talk a little bit about one of the stories of the day, at least one that I found, and that was James Jones on FS1 with Emmanuel Acho and I think it was Shady McCoy talking Niners. And it's funny, you get these football players around a podium, around a panel, and they'll say things, and it's like, wait a second, do you understand what you're saying? So James Jones is like, I blame Dre Greenlaw for the 49ers, backslide. And then you're sitting there, the first take would be like, what? What? You're going to blame Dre Greenlaw? But he didn't. That's not really what he meant. That's what he said, but that's not what he meant. What he meant is he's blaming the injury, the Achilles injury of Dre Greenlaw for the Niners backsliding. Now, that makes sense. You don't mean that you blame Dre Greenlaw. You're saying that you blame his Achilles injury. So James Jones was not attacking Dre Greenlaw, though he sounded like he was initially. He was actually, praising him and saying that this guy is the whole damn team, and that's why they backslid. Well, you know what? It's cool that he's got that take, and we'll talk about Greenlaw. Greenlaw's injury in and of itself alone is not the reason the Niners backslid this year. It didn't help. It was one of many reasons, but it wasn't the reason, and not in my opinion. But we'll talk about that in a second.
For me, it's Dre Greenlaw. I blame him. And it started in the Super Bowl. In the Super Bowl game, when Dre Greenlaw was in that game, the Chiefs had 80 yards and 0 points. When he went out of that football game, they had 25 points and 429 yards when Dre Greenlaw went out. Dre Greenlaw, as much as we want to say about Fred Warner, is the heartbeat of that defense. Brings the physicality, brings the emotion, the leadership, all that. Him and Fred Warner together is probably the best linebacker duo in the National Football League and just truly sets the tone. Coming into the season with Dre Greenlaw on the field, they 44-19. Without him, they 16-19. And we all know that they're giving up way more points without him. The physicality is not there without him. They're a totally different defense without him. Fred Warner is a totally different player without him. Dre Greenlaw's injury hurt the Niners more than we would ever know, and it started dating back to last year at that Super Bowl when he went out that game. That was the downfall of the San Francisco 49ers, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And in my humble opinion, it led to less physicality, less being the bully. Because even when he came back for that one game when Campbell was mad, we seen like, ooh, the Niners is physical. No, Dre.
But let's talk about James Jones and his comments. So he said, I blame, the Greenlaw Achilles injury for the Niners backslide. And then he cites a couple of stats that are just freaking amazing stats. I mean, some of the most amazing stats I've heard. And I didn't even know this one. In the Super Bowl against Kansas City, when Greenlaw was on the field for the Niners, guess how many points they scored? None. Zero. 0 points for Kansas City. And they only had 80 yards. Now, it was pretty early in the game, but 0 points and 80 yards with Greenlaw on the field. When Greenlaw went down from that point on, the Chiefs scored 25 points and had 429 total yards. How important was Dre Greenlaw? When Patrick Mahomes comes running off the field in the mic'd up version of Super Bowl 58, you can see him saying, we got to ratchet up our intensity. They're more intense than us. They're more intense than us. As far as he was concerned, it was a 5-alarm fire that the Niners were bringing that level of intensity. That's what Dre Greenlaw brings to the table. That's why it's absolutely essential that the Niners re-sign him. Now, they got to protect themselves. He's had some injuries. They can't go on some ridiculous contract, long-term, all kinds of no way out kind of things. But they can protect themselves in this deal, but they got to get him signed. They got to get him signed. He is their DNA. He is their leader. He is the best. This is the best linebacker. I know Fred gets all the headlines, but the great Greenlaw's their best linebacker. I really believe that. He's the heart and soul of the team. He's the tone setter. He's the violence. He's the intimidator. He's the guy that people are afraid of. He's the guy that sets the tone. I mean, and then the other stat that James Jones threw out, the 49ers with Greenlaw are 44-19 since they got him. And when he's not out there, they're 16-19. I mean, that right there is another, John Lynch, are you listening? 44-19 with Greenlaw, 16-19 without him. You got to have this guy. You absolutely got to have this guy. And I know you're probably going to wind up paying him more than you want to pay him. But this is a tone-setting player. The Niners without Greenlaw on defense lack intimidation. They're a whole lot less physical. They're a whole lot less intimidating when he's not on the field. 44-19 with him, 16-19 without him. I mean, that's dramatic. That really is dramatic. So he's the heart and soul of that team for sure. Now, as far as linebacker, there's a lot of things have to be decided on this football team. But just a perusal of the linebacking core, as I would see it for next year. Fred's coming back, obviously. You get Dre to come back. You have D. Winters, that's 3. You're bringing back Jalen Graham, that's 4. Curtis Robinson probably gets healthy, that's 5. You got Tatum Bethune in year 2, that's 6. We're thinking about going to camp. So you got 6 linebackers right there. But you really do, on the surface, you could sit there and go, oh, well, we have our 6 linebackers. We're set. We don't need linebackers. Wrong, you do. You really only have older Fred, older Dre, Winters, who's kind of a finesse player, misses a lot of tackles. He flies around, but there's nothing guaranteed there. Graham, who's doesn't even get on the field at the end of the year when everybody's hurt. So it's like, he's still TBD. Robinson off a knee injury, you don't know what he's going to be. Bethune may not be fast enough to play linebacker in the NFL on first and second down, or he might just be a first and second down guy or a run down guy only. I should say he might only be able to play on first and second down. He might not be a 3-down linebacker. So you need multiple dominant run and hit type linebackers. 3 to keep your eyes on during this bowl season. Harold Perkins from LSU, exactly what I'm talking about. Run and hit linebacker. So fast, so instinctive, really, really good player. Deontay Lawson, who you won't be able to see for Bama. He's out for the year, I believe. He had an injury. But Lawson and Campbell, the 2, Jihad Campbell and Deontay Lawson, the 2 Alabama linebackers, are really, really special. And then Casey Osai, from Louisiana. If you catch Louisiana in whatever bowl game they're in, Casey Osai is a linebacker who's probably going to go on day 3 of the draft. So just 3 names to keep in mind if you're thinking about guys to, fill out that linebacker room. But you have to have Dre Greenlaw. I mean, seriously, if those Super Bowl stats aren't enough, if the Niners record with and without him are not enough, I mean, when I talked to Demo Lenore this week, I said, hey, Demo, he's one of the young leaders on the defense. I said, Demo, hey, Greenlaw, what'd you think, after the Ram game? And he doesn't even say anything about his play, anything about him as a person, anything about his impact on the defense. First thing he says is, man, we got to get him signed. So, I mean, that's exactly, and I understand why he says that and why he feels that way, because that's exactly where I'm at with it as well. I know they got Purdy's contract. I know they got cap problems. I know they're going to be hugged up against it, and every dollar is vital. I don't give a crap about any of that. You got to get this guy signed. Bottom line, it almost doesn't matter who else comes back. Dre Greenlaw's got to be on this team next year. There's just no doubt about it. And you need to go into the draft and you need to go find yourself a couple more Dre Greenlaws. Because why did you backslide this year to a 6-win type season? Because you still have the Bosas and the Fred Warners and the Kittles and the Greenlaws, and you're top heavy at the very top. You got some great players, but it really is camouflaged that beneath, because of the 20 missed picks in the first 3 rounds, they don't have any quality depth. They don't have a young Dre Greenlaw. They don't have a young Fred Warner. They don't have a young Nick Bosa. They don't have a young George Kittle. They're paper thin, and that's why this has to be a trade back volume kind of a draft this year, and they got a hit. So remember those 3 names: Harold Perkins, Casey Osai, Deontay Lawson, Jihad Campbell. I guess those 4 names. Those are some of the inside backers that I really like in this upcoming draft. That does it for this video. Once again, the video should be titled John Lynch signed Dre Greenlaw. And James Jones, you don't blame Dre Greenlaw. You blame Dre Greenlaw's Achilles. We got you. But bottom line is, I agree with James. You got to have Dre Greenlaw. Thanks for supporting, of course, The Krug Show. Pig and a Pickle is the title sponsor of The Krug Show. Thanks to Better for sponsoring this video. Thanks to all of you guys for supporting The Krug Show on YouTube.